It was just past midnight when the knocking started. 3 soft, deliberate taps on my front door, evenly spaced. Precise, almost mechanical. I paused the horror movie I'd been watching, some forgettable slasher film I wasn't really paying attention to, and muted the TV. For a moment, I convinced myself I'd imagined it, that the sound had come from the movie, or perhaps the old pipes in my apartment building settling. Then it came again. I glanced at my phone. 12:17 a.m. Too late for package deliveries, maintenance, or any other reasonable visitor. I'd only moved into the Pineview apartments 3 weeks ago and barely knew anyone in the building, let alone well enough for a midnight visit. "Who is it?" I called out, not moving from my couch. No response. Just silence stretching out until I began to question whether I'd heard anything at all. I grabbed my phone, ready to call building security, when a voice came through the door, muffled but distinct enough that I could understand. "James, it's Dan from 4C. I need your help with something. It's urgent." Dan from 4C. I'd met him exactly once during my first week here. He was a tall, rail-thin man in his 40s, with thinning hair and an awkward laugh. We'd exchanged pleasantries by the mailboxes, and he'd mentioned something about working nights at a research lab. Nothing about our 30-second interaction had suggested we would ever have the kind of relationship that warranted midnight emergency visits. "It's pretty late, Dan," I called back, still not approaching the door. "What's going on?" A pause. Too long to be natural. "I'm locked out, and you're the only one with lights on. I just need to use your phone." Something felt off. The voice sounded like Dan, but there was an unusual cadence to it. And why wouldn't he go to the building manager's apartment on the first floor? "I can call someone for you," I offered. "Who do you need me to contact?" Another pause. "No, I need to come in. It's complicated. Please, James. I need your help." I moved closer to the door, but something kept me from unlocking it. Some primal instinct was firing warning signals throughout my body. "Why don't you go down to Rick's place?" I suggested, referring to our building manager. "He probably has a spare key." "Rick isn't home," came the immediate response. Too immediate. How would he know that unless he'd already tried? "Please, James. It's important. I'm in trouble." I approached the door and looked through the peephole. Dan stood there in the dimly lit hallway, wearing what appeared to be the same clothes I'd seen him in earlier that day when we passed in the lobby. Dark jeans and a gray button-up shirt. His face was partially shadowed, his head tilted slightly downward. "What kind of trouble, Dan?" I asked. He looked up then, directly into the peephole, as if he knew exactly where my eye would be. His face looked wrong. The proportions seemed slightly off, his skin tone uneven in the poor lighting. "I just need to come in for a moment," he said, his lips not quite matching his words. "Just open the door, James." My phone vibrated in my hand. A text message. I glanced down, keeping one eye on the peephole. The text was from a number saved as Dan 4C in my contacts. I'd exchanged numbers with a few neighbors as a courtesy when I moved in. The message read, "Hey James, sorry to bother you so late. I'm in Chicago for a conference until Friday. Someone reported strange noises from my apartment. If management asks, could you tell them I'm out of town? Thanks." My blood turned to ice. I looked back through the peephole. The thing that wasn't Dan smiled, revealing teeth too numerous and too sharp to be human. "James," it said, the voice suddenly different, deeper, with an unnatural resonance that made my ears hurt. "I know you're there. I can hear you breathing." I backed away from the door, trying to make my movements silent. Whatever was out there, it wasn't my neighbor. Harder now, more insistent. "James," no longer pretending to be human. The voice reverberated through my apartment, despite the closed door between us. "Let me in." I grabbed my keys and my phone, heading for my bedroom window that connected to the fire escape. The pounding on the door grew louder, the wood beginning to splinter around the frame. "You cannot hide from me, James." As I climbed out onto the metal landing of the fire escape, I heard the final crack of my front door giving way. Heavy footsteps entered my apartment, as I descended the rusted stairs as quietly as possible. When I reached the bottom, I looked up at my window 4 stories above. A figure stood there, its proportions all wrong. Limbs too long, head too large and misshapen. It raised an arm in greeting, fingers extending impossibly, stretching toward where I stood frozen in the alley below. I ran. I spent that night in a 24-hour diner, repeatedly calling the police, who found nothing when they investigated. No broken door, no signs of intrusion, and according to the building manager, who I finally reached at 6 a.m., apartment 4C had been vacant for over 3 months. I never returned to my apartment. I left everything I owned there, told the landlord to keep my security deposit, and moved in with my brother 2 states away. Sometimes I still get text messages from Dan 4C. They're always the same. "Won't you let me in, James? We were neighbors once." That practically makes us family. The most terrifying part? I changed my phone number 3 times. The last text came through last night. "I found your new place, James. Nice house your brother has. I'll be visiting soon, and this time you will let me in." I hear tapping on the front door now. 3 soft, deliberate knocks.